What's going on, guys? This is the Flyin podcast, episode number 10. Really pumped about that. We made it all the way to 10 episodes, guys. Pretty pumped about that. But welcome back to everyone. FC had a Leagues Cup game this past week. A couple of our guys also played in the MLS All-Star game. So we're going to touch a little bit on the MLS All-Star game, get into a little bit of the bizarre actions in the game that we had this past Sunday and Leagues Cup too. So Sam, I'm going to throw it over to you, I guess, to start here. What do you think of the past week?
Yeah. I guess, we'll start with the All-Star game since we did have that kind of hiatus where we didn't have, much FC Cincinnati to talk about, but we did have, three guys in the All-Star game, which was, a lot to talk about for us, which was really cool. Barreal, Lucho, and Miazga. But yeah, I mean, the All-Star game wasn't much of an All-Star game. If you go back and you look at the highlights, even released by the MLS, I don't know. There might be like one highlight of an MLS player taking a shot or doing something. The rest are all five goals by Arsenal. So just didn't look too good for the MLS guys.
Yeah, I was gonna say it was good for about 10 minutes, I think it was there. There's some fantastic world class goals. Being able to see that against our team, or our players, I should say. It was pretty fascinating to watch, just seeing the skill gap between some of them throughout the field, and just being able to have that competition against our players was kind of eye opening.
Wanted to see how he stacked up, and it certainly kind of showed that there's a little bit of a gap, maybe a lot of a gap
A little.
but at least our guys, I don't know what you guys thought, but I felt like Barreal probably played the best out of all three. He stood his own. He was playing left back or wing back, I guess. We played in a four back, so he kind of played more of a traditional left back, and he kind of shut down Bukayo Saka, to be honest. So I felt like the goals that kind of occurred through that side weren't really his fault, and he played pretty decent. Lucho was playing out wide, so that was kind of cool to see him and some of the other guys. It's maybe a little bit of his not preferred position, but we saw in Leagues Cup game, and we'll touch on it later, Sam, how Lucho kind of drifted out wide a little bit. So maybe that was some shades of the All-Star game. So did you have any comment about Barrial's play or Lucho's play?
Yeah, I think we were talking about it in the chat a little bit of, how well Barreal is playing. Like you said, he kind of held his own against Saka, which was really cool. But I wanted to kind of touch on the All-Star game as a whole, like this whole structure of an All-Star game. I'm curious to see what your guys' opinion is, because I'm thinking with the introduction of Leagues Cup and this new format of Leagues Cup with Liga MX coming in, do you think that played a factor in us not playing the Liga MX All-Stars again for like the second year?
Very valid point. I think that's probably a highly possible scenario.
Yeah, I mean, we're playing them anyway, like in this whole month. So yeah, good point, Sam. I feel like it's almost time that we get back to, MLS East versus West.
I think,
Yeah.
well, I think that we're gaining a lot more popularity, which is good, right? But I don't know if we're quite there yet for people to know who's on the East and who's on the West. Like, it's even difficult for us, like being an East Coast team, to even figure out like who's on the West Coast teams, right? So I think give it, I'd say like tops 5 years for it to get to that. But if we continue on the same trajectory that MLS is, and it continues to grow, become, top six league in the world, I definitely see it as a scenario for sure.
Yeah, I like that thought on maybe in a couple years, because I mean you're only starting to see the rivalry between the East and West. Like you can kind of see some people chirping on Twitter and other places saying like, oh, the West, like as you can see in the supporter shield, right? Like you see all the top 3 or 4 East Coast teams are on in the top 5, and you got all of the West Coast is like middle of the standing. So it's really cool to see the dynamic between the two. But then if you get All-Star game. I think that would be a great matchup in the future, though.
So for those who aren't familiar, I mean, that's a great point, Zach. I guess my question for you guys to kind of touch on that, FC Cincinnati was rumored to have been offered at some point in the first 5 years of existence of TQL Stadium, the All-Star game. Based on the last 2 years and how things have gone, do you guys think, like selfishly, like going to a game in TQL, would you rather see a Premier League team or would you rather see a East versus West?
I mean, based off of what we saw in DC, like I'd rather not see an embarrassment. However, it's always cool to see the Premier League guys over in the States.
Right.
But to that point, I think that's why they have the friendlies over here. That's why you saw so many, La Liga teams, so many Premier League teams. Like if you want to go watch Premier League, like go watch the Premier League.
And on another point, now that the MLS has Messi and Busquets and now Jordi Alba, you're going to see them in the MLS All-Stars probably next year. So you're already seeing world-class players, and what more do you want from that?
It's going to be the Messi and friends versus everyone else.
Exactly.
We'll have to rewrite the rules or something for that.
I will say another point to the All-Star game. With Lucho coming off, I didn't really appreciate that he was subbed off for Zelarayan.
Oh, really? I didn't notice that.
I didn't catch that either.
I didn't really appreciate that.
Don't like that. But at least he started and was captain.
Yeah.
The hot debate in the league right now is who's the best Argentinian number 10 between, the three of them or even a couple other Argentinian players. But again, that's another discussion for another day, I think. But it's interesting. I think there's a lot actually in the league if you look at it. And how many of those guys even play for the national team? Now just Almada and Messi. That's it.
Yeah, I think a couple more players for sure deserve a shout, right? Acosta being one, but I think selfishly we also want him to be on the U.S. men's national team here in the next World Cup. So,
touching on that real quick, there was kind of reports in the locker room that his, I guess, progress in terms of like becoming a U.S. citizen is, being expedited and hopefully will be done. So hopefully we'll see that here sooner than later. So I guess we can transition a little bit. FC Cincinnati is playing in this Leagues Cup tournament, this kind of bizarro midseason type deal, whichever way you want to kind of chalk it up. That it's very similar to a World Cup style in the sense of there's groups. For those who aren't familiar, there's 3 teams generally in a single group. Depending on how you do in the group play against the other teams will dictate if you move on into kind of like a round robin type tournament. FC Cincinnati had drawn Sporting Kansas City and Chivas. Guadalajara, I believe, is the Mexican team. So those 2 teams are in our group because we had the highest standing in the MLS based on last year. We were ranked higher, so we get to host the home games, at least for 2 teams. Whereas I think Sporting Kansas City gets to host the Chivas game. So kind of cool to see that we have 2 home games for it. Again, our first one was on Sunday against Sporting Kansas City. What a freaking game, Sam.
Yeah, this was such a mess of a game from production of the game to the game itself. It was just, it was not quality. Let's just, leave it at that. Like the whole game, FC Cincinnati looked extremely lackadaisical. And it was just, it was just a mess. I'm sure we'll go, goal by goal and interaction by interaction, but that was kind of my initial thoughts of the whole match.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that it was a mess in general. There were a lot of bright spots. There were a lot of not so bright spots. Like, I was tweeting throughout the game. I'm sure you guys probably saw the bombardment of them. There's just so many reaction tweets, GIFs that you could put for that first half that were just, you got a little bit of everything. You got own goals, you got PKs, you got great goals, like all across the board. It's great soccer. Love to see it. And, we'll touch on the formatting and everything else later, but I mean, there's tons of soccer being played right now, and then you're only going to get EPL here soon. So, and as a soccer fan, how happy can you be? I think it's great.
I was really like, I guess happy, like you said, to like see that we're still playing. It's not like a full month off, selfishly just being a fan of the game and this team, like to see them out there. But I was really curious to see, how did we come out? How did we line up? How did we, you know, take this game really? Because it's not an MLS season game, it's a Leagues Cup game. And what does that mean? What are the ramifications of that? So, briefly, I guess to touch on that part, so people are aware, if you win the Leagues Cup, you get actually a pretty big prize pool for it, or I guess it's split up, but it's a pretty hefty paycheck. But also you get access to a CONCACAF tournament with all of the teams, and I think North America and South America combined. So that's a nice way to, maybe encourage teams to play some of their starters, and, really our starting lineup kind of reflected that. So touching on that, I think the only people that were the major kind of people that I was expecting to see, or maybe not expecting to see. I'd take that back. I feel like I was going to see a lot of rookies, but we actually only saw Pinto starting in the midfield, and then Alec Khan playing in goal for Roman Celentano. Otherwise, our lineup was pretty much as strong as it was against Nashville. So any initial thoughts on the lineup? I know I tweeted about it. I was kind of interested to see Bupenza play, more minutes with Vasquez, which ended up being kind of cool. But Sam, what were your initial thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my initial thoughts were the same as yours. I think we initially thought, that they weren't going to have, too strong of a lineup, right? That we were going to give some guys some breaks, which, we saw kind of Alec Khan coming in. We had talked about in prior podcasts, like Celentano just doesn't really look like himself. And I think this was a much needed break for him. So that was kind of an obvious one. But yeah, I think that the changes, even on the wing, having Powell on the right side as well, and then Barrio on the left, I feel like maybe somebody else should have gotten a shout. On the outside, I know some of the guys like Miazga, like Acosta, like Barrio, like they're coming off an All-Star game, right? So I wasn't sure if they were going to give some time off, but clearly,
give Barrio a break, man. That dude's played so many minutes.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking. But Zach, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, like you guys have touched on. I mean, there's a lot of most of our starters, you got the two, Pinto and Khan, as our reserves or just depth pieces starting. I think we've all kind of the past pretty much right before break, I think, we've noticed that it's just been Haglin and then either Mascara or Miazga in the center, and then you got Murphy on the right. I think just we need some more depth in that back line. I don't think we have enough center backs to feel comfortable. We're not really comfortable with that back line yet. So I thought that was like that's our weak spot right now, and I think we really need to improve that. In my opinion,
Felt like this was a good time to really like test the depth a little bit. Put some other guys out there maybe to get some minutes to prepare them for this season. Is that kind of what you're touching on with that, Zach?
Yeah, exactly. And then in just moving forward against Chivas, that's going to be, I mean, they're probably top 3 team in Mexico. So seeing them up against or seeing FCC against Chivas, I think that's going to be a huge test. Granted, we'll probably have all our starters, but I still think it'll be an interesting matchup on that back line.
I think that's a great transition into the first goal.
Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, to touch on the first goal, I know Ryan's probably going to touch on it a little bit more later, but just an unfortunate goal. Haglin trying to clear the ball with his head. I feel like he probably could have waited a little bit and gotten a boot on it rather than his head. That's just my opinion. Or that he didn't know that there wasn't really anybody on the backside, so he could have let it go. But yeah, I think this is definitely something where Haglin's he can't start. Like he's got to come off the bench. He's got to earn his spot back because he's He's had too many of these times where it's bad.
Yeah, let's create some competition. That's a good point, Sam. I mean, he's been a trusted like MLS vet, but at some point you got to say, look, man, look at the Charlotte game. We give up 2 goals early, and that's pretty much on Hagelin. And then in this game, the first one, you're right, man. Like, the first one comes in and it's kind of like shoulder level. It's like, do I like, thigh it out? Do I kick it out? Do I head it out? And I don't know if it was just instinct, but dude, what a flying header though. Like straight into our goal, but like, holy crap, Hagelin. Like that thing was lasered in there. So let's see that on the offensive side. But yeah, that was brutal to watch, especially because we had like a decent chance or two, I think early on, like you touched on, Zach. Like we had like some good chances like pretty early. I think you had mentioned that at least. But then after that, it was like the Hagelin show for about a good 10-15 minutes with, that one into the own goal. And then the second one off of, I think if I'm not mistaken, there was a foul and there was a free kick. The foul was a little bit of a like last defender sort of thing, if I remember correctly. It was a
Yeah.
Mosquera tackle, which led to, I think, his yellow card, if I'm not mistaken on that one.
Yeah.
They put a ball in where I think I'm trying to see, at least on the backside, like, do you think that Khan could have done better to clear it out there, or do you think they just need to talk better in that situation? What do you see on that part?
Yeah,
Zach,
from the stream, I mean, I think it was was his name Rosetta or Rosario or something like that, who got the goal for SKC. He was kind of sandwiched between Haglund and Mosquera. Seemed like Mosquera kind of like let him go because Haglund kind of had him, but he was on his backside. So Haglund, obviously, I don't think he's very good at defending. You can't really defend a header from in front of the ball. So I feel like, uh, to your point about Alec Khan, I think that was kind of at like the 6 yard box. So he had to cover a lot of ground on that kick to get up there. So I think it definitely fell on Haglund to guard that guy, to man mark him pretty
yeah,
much. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, like, I think definitely, Alec Khan would have been putting his body on the line on that one. And I don't know if he stays in the game because that's kind of a thundering herd. And then you have the post right there as well that kind of plays in as a factor, kind of as another player, if you will. So that could have definitely been a dangerous play had he, gone full force, either for him or for, either Sporting KC player or Haglin.
Yeah, it was interesting to see because then you go down like 0-2, and I'm like, shoot, this is shades of St. Louis. This is shades of DC for me. Like, it was just like nightmare fuel. But like we saw in Charlotte, like they did a decent job to kind of come back. Definitely helps going up a man. So let's quickly touch on this.
Yeah.
After that second goal goes in, we kind of wake up a little bit more. We create a little bit more chances. Around like I think the 27th, 30th minute, there's a play down the side, and Mosquera goes into this tackle. The other guy kind of slides into him, I think, or they get rolled around. Mosquera goes to like get up and shoves the guy off of him, like just trying to stand up. I think you can say it whatever way you want to say it on that, but maybe there's a little bit of a push, but the guy clearly does a head butt and not a head push. I know we talked about this in prior podcasts, but that is the clear definition of a head butt.
Yeah, Polito kind of overreacted on that one, and you could, I mean, say what you want about the situation, but you could definitely tell after he did it, he was like, "Oh, I probably,"
He knew
he's
right
like, "I
away.
probably shouldn't have done that." Like you could definitely see because I know Ryan, you were yelling for Polito to get off the field, but he wanted to make sure that Mosquera was okay. So like, I appreciate that a little bit, but yeah, like what what a stupid decision by him. Like to full force headbutt the guy in front of FC Cincinnati's bench as well. Like, so I mean, from an American soccer standpoint, that was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, Polito definitely knew what he was doing when he was doing the foul because it was clear as day on the broadcast. But watching it live, it almost looked like because his back was was back to the camera, and it looked like he like threw a punch and headbutt him when he was getting up. So I was like, that's a blatant red, but come to find out it was just a headbutt. But yeah, it was clear and obvious. Let's put it that way.
Clear and obvious from everyone watching at home, at the game, like wherever you're at. Like there was no mistaking this one was a red card compared to maybe the ones before. Headbutt, not a head push. Again, are our players more headbuttable than other players in the MLS?
Well,
Because
Mascara specifically.
It was one of those situations where you look at the jumbotron and the whole stadium, like every single time.
Yeah. It was. Go ahead, Zach.
Well, I was just gonna say, I mean, it was even like in the stadium. I'm sure it was like seeing it like in that moment. You're like, yeah, that there's no way he's getting out of that one.
It was instant,
instant, and instantly you're like, all right, we have numbers. Let's see what we can actually do with this, because that's been an issue for us lately. Going back to the Nashville game, and we'll probably touch on that a little bit later, but we go up a man, and like the 33rd minute, we have a corner kick. We play another short ball in the corner. That's another thing I want to touch on, is I just can't stand how we're doing corner kicks still. Lucho still can't beat the first guy on his corners, which is just driving me crazy. They do a short ball on this one, though. It actually kind of works. It falls back out to him. He plays a good ball in. Murphy, gets his head on it. Actually, it has a really good header into the upper 90 off the post. It hits off the keeper and goes in. I think they actually call it an own goal, Zach. Is that correct on that?
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt like it was going in. Like, I don't know.
I thought that was the most technical piece of play that, God, I forgot his first name, Ian Murphy has ever done. I mean, it was perfect. It was beautiful. It just, he got pretty lucky, but at the same time, I mean, it was right there.
I think that definitely made up for his yellow card earlier in the game. That kind of, it didn't set up the Hagelin own goal, but that was like in the transition of that own goal. So I definitely think that perfectly placed header was definitely made up for the yellow.
Yeah, good point. And kind of his, run of form lately with how many red cards and yellow cards. It's like, dude, we need something positive from you. So that was good to actually see him do something like that. After we score almost instantaneously, we place the ball back on the center spot and the ref blows the whistle. I'm thinking, oh gosh, here we go. VAR or some ridiculous review. Murphy jumped over the guy, whatever. No, it's a lightning delay. So we had another one at TQL, 2 games in a row now where we've had a little bit of a delay. It's kind of strange because we didn't see any lightning. Maybe it was around the area. Being in the stadium, it got cooler, which I was kind of thankful about, but we didn't get rained on. Obviously, we were covered. It was just strange. It's the second straight game the Baileys had to be taken out of the stadium and let back in, which we can get into that. I think it's ridiculous the way that they kind of let people back in. It's dangerous. But it was very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was a 40-minute delay. Like that's, I feel like it was a little bit longer than it needed to be. Plus, it's always funny when they do come back out, then they have to warm up for another 10, 15 minutes, right? Before they can play again, which all for the safety of the players, but maybe 5 minutes instead of 10 to 15. But I think this goes back to Zach last week, given the card to the weather. I think the weather for sure deserves another card. But yeah, I mean, not much you can control when it's Mother Nature.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of interesting tactics I feel like that came out of that, because I feel like with that weather delay, it gave Kansas City the time to kind of regroup after that red card and really kind of figure out a strategy to basically defend or beat us. And with that, it just kind of, you could tell we had the momentum coming from that goal. I mean, we score a goal and you go straight into the weather delay, and then you play for was it 10 more minutes, and then another 15 more minute break. So it's like it kills the complete momentum, and then you basically have the whole second half to just defend your 1 goal lead. more or less. So
Dude, you hit the head on the nail. Like I told Sam as soon as it hit a weather delay, I'm like, are you kidding me? We just have this momentum. We're up a man, and now they're gonna have time to like figure out how they want to defend us now like that. Like you're exactly right. It was just kind of brutal. And the fact that like let's talk about like Leagues Cup, right? Already like did some goofy things, right? I don't know if we want to get into this now, but with the way that the game was set up and everything, with this weather delay in the middle of the first half, have the players warm up, have them, finish the 10 minutes, give them a 5-minute break to just get a water or something, and then go and play again. You don't need another 15-minute halftime.
Yeah.
Like you have the flexibility in this new Leagues Cup setup to try something like that. But I don't know. That's my own opinion on that, I guess.
I did think it was really funny though that the Baileys celebrated the goal twice.
That's true. They did. They did like as soon as like everyone's getting off the field and like they're saying at first they said like we highly recommend you leave, but they didn't say you have to. So the Bailey's like shalalalalin, as they do. And then we get 40-minute break and I said, Sam, I wonder if they're going to be doing the same thing. And they sure did. It was pretty cool to see actually.
that's hilarious. So as they're warming up or getting ready to start, they start. Do they do
Yeah.
the smoke and everything too?
I don't know if they did a second.
Smoke,
I don't
yeah.
think they did a second smoke.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Yeah, we did another release the Bailey video for you too, Zach.
Oh, I love it. Those are so fun to watch. Gotta love a time lapse.
Yep. Yep. Again, like what situation are you ever going to see the Bailey fill all the way up within like 5 minutes? So that was kind of cool to see, but also again, dangerous if it's too much too quick. So any more we want to touch on, I guess, on the first half, I guess we can briefly just touch on a little bit in the second half. As soon as second half kicks off, we're kind of stagnant, guys. What do you think? I mean, like we created some chances, but I'm like, we're up a man. Like, let's do something.
I think, yeah, it definitely took a while for us to get going. And we had the possession, a good chunk of the second half, and it was on their half of the field, right? So we were just playing kind of half court, if you will. And it just nobody was on the same page. It kind of looked similar to the Chicago game, Zach. If you remember watching the Chicago game, it was something similar to that where
Yep.
we were on their side and the communication was just off. But we eventually did find it.
Yeah, I thought it was particularly interesting because I think in the excuse me, on the start of the second half, Miazga and Nwobodo come in as subs for Haglund and Haglund and Pinto, and like you said, I'm surprised they came out really flat. Those are our starting players. What's up with the being up a man and not being able to produce anything? It seemed like creativity was definitely lacking. I don't know. I should have paid attention a little bit more, but I don't know what Kansas City transitioned to after that halftime, to what formation they were doing. But they were just, it seemed like, Ryan, you've always said this. It seems like every time we're up a man, it actually seems like we're the one who's down a man. So I don't know what was going on.
I don't understand if that's like a coaching thing or an energy thing, or like you guys had like a week break, like 3 guys played middle of the week, and they didn't even play a full game, but you come back and you're a little bit sluggish. And like, was it the breaks? Was it the weird setup that threw them off? Was it, that they celebrated the Kansas City goals in the stadium? Like, I don't understand that, but some mojo was just kind of off in that setting. And, but like Sam mentioned, we get to like the 57th minute, our savior Lucho again plays a great ball across for Vasquez to kind of tap in one. We tie it up 2-2. We're feeling a lot better about it. We have a little bit more momentum. Maybe you're creating a little bit more chances, but still kind of stagnant towards the like later part of that half. And then by the end, we just give up a kind of ridiculous PK. I don't know what else to say about it. It was a PK. I thought it was a PK right away.
I honestly, I think you could have made a decent argument for a red card for that PK because his arm was so deliberately out, and I think it could have been, you could have made the case for it. So I'm glad that, we didn't go a man down as well, or else, I think that probably would have been game right there.
Yeah, I mean, it was our boy Powell, Alvis Powell, who got the PK. And really on that PK, I believe one of the I was really hoping they would pull it back, because that's a distraction when you see one of those players run into the 18. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
Hmm.
he was 3 or 4 steps into the box by the time the guy kicked it, and
Hmm.
ref didn't call anything or say anything. So I thought that was um, interesting that he didn't make him at least retake it.
We were kind of
Interesting.
lucky then in a way.
Yeah.
Good. So we go down, 3-2 at that point. I always like kind of skip over this moment in the match, but I think a couple minutes after that, Kansas City again goes on the break. Like, what the heck? We're up a man. Like, what are we doing? They go on a break again. They get down the sideline. Our converted new right back, Yuya Kubo, is tracking the guy. The guy plays the ball across, and Khan makes like a point blank save. It could have been end of the game right there. It could have been
Yeah.
4-2, and that was almost it.
Yeah. Mascara just quit on the ball right there. I
Yeah,
mean,
he did. You
I
you
think, I
called it
think
out right away.
it was one of those moments where I think everybody, even like in the stadium, it was like, oh yeah, like that looks like a ball that's just going to trickle out of bounds, but he saved it. It was a great cross, across into the box, and gosh, like what an awful shot, to be honest with you. Like it was right at
Right.
Alec
Yeah.
Khan. Like you couldn't have had a more wide open goal, and he just hit it right at him. So I mean, it was a decent, like easy save for Alec Khan, but yeah, what a break right there.
We were
I mean,
lucky to not concede on that for sure. What were you gonna say, Zach?
just I'd have nervous knees if I was Alec Khan in that instance. Like the pressure trying to save that. Like
Yeah.
I would, if I was Alec Khan, I'd be right up in their face yelling at our defense. Like
What
you
are you
cannot let
doing?
that.
You're up a
Yeah,
man. Like, why are you guys letting this guy into the box free, essentially? Like,
ridiculous. I
yeah,
was definitely screaming at the TV
yeah.
as I was watching that.
I
On
guess
the other end though, we get a PK
I
of
was
our
gonna
own.
say, in the
Yeah.
last, breath of the game, the last shot of the game, there could have been two penalties on this last play. Barrial's cross hits the guy's arm. Lucho then rips the ball in. The guy kind of has his arms behind his back, but leans out with his arm. That's a penalty, but you could have called the first one or the second one, like I said. He ends up converting and scoring it. But I wanted to ask you guys, this is going to be our trivia question of the week here. Lucho's now scored a PK in how many straight games for FC Cincinnati? Sam, what do you think?
Uh I'm gonna go six. I'm gonna go 6 straight games.
Okay. Zach, what about you?
6 straight games he scored a PK. Shows you how little I'm paying attention to the PKs. I'm gonna go with 3.
3. Okay. All right. So Sam had 6, Zach locked in 3. We're going to take a quick break here, get a word from our sponsor. Later on in the episode, we'll give you the answer to that trivia question. We'll chat a little bit more about the crazy end of this game. It was nuts. So we'll be right back in a second.
So Agility is a technology-driven soccer training facility. So we offer 6 facets of training. That would be Tech Touch with ball launchers that work on your first touch, the TSZ, which is the ESA equipment and working on decision making. We also have a circuit. Circuit training would be taking the ESA equipment to the next level. It's kind of like a soccer obstacle course. Then we offer neuroscience training with our reflection tools, working on processing things a little bit faster, hand-eye coordination and such. We offer skills classes, which is your typical core skills training. Lots of people still enjoy that, so we work on a lot of attacking 1v1 skills. And then we also offer athlete development. So our athletes come here and they work on speed, agility, quickness, explosive movements, really just learning how to move and function a little bit better as an athlete.
And we're back. We're chatting here with Sam and Zach about our Leagues Cup game that we had this past weekend. Where we kind of left off was FC Cincinnati had tied up the game in the last breath of the game, the last kick of the game. Lucho scores a nice PK. It sets us up to where this bizarro Leagues Cup setup, half the fans start walking out of the stadium, and Sam and I are yelling, come back, there's PKs. No one had any idea. I'd probably say 15% of people, but to be fair, like normally it's a tie in a World Cup setting, you don't play it just directly like that. So it was interesting. Once we told people, they're like, oh, that's exciting, and they were really pumped about it. I'm happy that the PKs actually happened in front of the Bailey, Sam.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, I mean, it was funny that, Lucho had to take a PK in order to get into PKs, and then he was the first PK. So having to take two in a row, pick the same side, which some people would say that, it was a questionable decision, but they both went in. So I'm happy about that. But I think all in all, I think the PKs, I thought we did really well. It was nice to see Brandon Vasquez get redemption from the Gold Cup in the same stadium, right?
Yes.
Maybe I'm gonna say, since we were facing the Bailey, I'm gonna go. It gave him some energy, and he did a lot better, and it was a lot more calm, cool, collected. So that was kind of good to see.
It's funny you talk about that, Ryan. It's a Sunday night, man. I'm getting grumpy when games are lasting past 10 p.m. Like even those MLS After Dark matches against West Coast teams are difficult. Try a Sunday night game with a weather delay, pack it in with PKs. All in all,
the
exciting.
Game had everything, man. So at this point, we're like, we can't leave this. But I totally get what you mean. I get what you mean, though.
Knowing me, I would be complaining. I was really hoping the game would end with at least a win. But, I think going into the PKs, I was kind of nervous just with Alec Khan. But at the same time, I mean, he's been in that tournament situation before. So he understands that pressure, which at the same time, I feel like Roman needs to get that experience because he has not played in a tournament setting yet like that. And I'm just curious, when it does come down to it, is he going to be able to perform on those PKs when it comes,
That's a really good point.
But overall, I think our shooters or PK takers, they did fantastic. Every shot was where it needed to be. No over the moon shots that Vasquez had during the U.S. men's national team. But I think it was a great PK situation.
Yeah, for those that maybe don't know the final outcome of it, they know we won, but their guy misses, I think, the second to last one. He hits it over the bar, and then Khan saves the last one, so we end up winning the PK shootout 4-2. What's really funny about Leagues Cup is you get 2 points for a win like that, compared to 3, which you normally get for a win. But Kansas City also gets a point because of the tie, which is, again, a bizarre rule, and I don't even know how that works. I guess it just continues the tally, in their next game will kind of determine things on who goes through. But I thought that was interesting. I think FC Cincinnati had even tweeted it out, like, we got 2 points at home. And I'm like, this is just weird right now. It was just strange to hear that part of things, Sam.
Yeah, the whole 2 points thing is going to be touched on here in a little bit, but yeah, just happy to technically get the win.
Yeah. So Sam, that leads me, I guess, to it. What was I guess we'll do your jersey swap of the week first. We'll ask you that one. What was your jersey swap of the week?
Yeah, I mean, we'll go back to the guy that, saved the day for us there at the end of the game in Alec Khan. I thought he played a pretty solid game. Like, he played a good game. I would say there's a lot to blame on the defensive line rather than him. Once again, an own goal, a very well-placed cross and header, and then a PK. So, like, not much he can do about that. So, I mean, won the game in PKs, which was really cool. And, we got to see him save the last PK, kind of like he did with the Red Bulls game, which was really cool. But I think he definitely stepped up, like I talked about earlier, when Celentano kind of needed a break. Like he stepped up and, he was there to play.
Zach,
All great points on Khan. I respect the dude with the amount of pressure that was on him, and he pulled out and got us 2 points. The jersey swap for me was Ian Murphy. I know he kind of he left early in the game. He subbed out, I think, the 60th minute, or sorry, 46th minute. Maybe I don't remember what the exact timestamp is, but
it was at halftime.
Was it halftime? Okay, I said it earlier.
No, Hagelin did. Hagelin got.
No, it was Hagelin. You're right.
Yeah,
it was the 60th minute, 60th, something like that.
Yeah.
So Ian Murphy, he had the go ahead first goal for us. I'm gonna give him the goal because he was at the right place, had it on, hit the woodwork. I mean, come on, what more can you do other than put it in the net? But the goalie helped him. I think that really kind of gave him a little bit of confidence in his playing. Maybe it might fix his it might not fix his discipline. He needs to work on that, I think. But his overall positioning within free kicks or set pieces, I think that's something that we could all agree on, that we need more goals from our defenders on those kind of situations. So that was a great point. And then his passing, actually, he had the highest passing on the team for anybody who played in the match over 45 minutes. So he had 94% passing, which is pretty phenomenal, I would say. Granted, it's probably a lot of back and forth on the back line, but I mean, 94% is still pretty decent.
I was going to say, it seemed like they were playing the ball back and forth to each other a lot, and it was frustrating the crap out of me because there was 9 guys behind the ball, and it's like our guys up front maybe need to move to give Murphy, Miazga, those guys a chance to play him a ball over the top or between the lines or anything like that. But I like that shout though for Murphy. My jersey swap of the week was going to be Luciano Costa. Shocker, right? Shocker. I think he, technically gets 2 assists if we're all going to count that Murphy goal. Like, he gets an assist there. He gets the one with Vasquez. Sam made a great point. The composure to make 2 PKs in a row, pretty much without a break. So the keeper just saw what you did. You really don't have a break to see somebody else, and then you have to see him again. So whether that was like a whole tactic to get in the keeper's head to start it out, was interesting, but he blasted that second penalty in, and I was happy to see that. So Lucho, the man, I didn't see him go over and celebrate with his family after the PK. I was really looking forward to that, but I didn't get to see that one. So Lucho was my jersey swap. What's up, Sam?
Yeah, I do want to touch real quick again on the PKs. I thought this was interesting, and I think somebody made a point at the game. I can't remember who made a point of it at the game, but every single one of our players talked to the goalkeeper. I thought that was a thing that you weren't allowed to do, but once again, it's Leagues Cup, anything goes, and it's a new rule made up on the spot. So I was curious, like, what did you guys think about that?
I just remember seeing it from the international break. I know there was a lot of flack from a lot of people with Miazga talking to the players. You're talking about like when they switch and they pass the ball. Yeah. I thought that was I mean, it's a tactic. I think it might work, but is there a rule that says that you can't talk to a player when you're walking by, or like?
Are you referring to our guys talking to our keeper?
Yeah.
Oh,
I think the FC guys went over to Alec Khan and tried to like get him
every single
up.
time. Like, they gave him the ball, went over to him, and like gave him a hug. And I was like, I don't think I've seen that like too much.
Yeah, it was cool to see encouragement like that.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, boost his confidence. I would imagine it would.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was good to see like the guys like supporting him as much as like their first goalkeeper. Like, it just shows like the chemistry top to bottom, not just like in your starting keeper, but even in your secondary one. Even all your starters are still having good belief in your backup goalie, who's had some MLS experience in the past. And honestly, Zach is right, has more experience in PK shootouts this year too. He played in the Red Bulls game in the US Open Cup and actually won us that one as well. So down the stretch, going into MLS Cup, maybe later on in this tournament, maybe we see Roman come in and get some experience for that. Zach, that's a good point though. Switching over to our card of the week though, Sam kind of was referencing to this, earlier on. So I'm going to ask him first. What was your card of the week, Sam?
Yeah, our card of the week. We talked about it a little bit earlier, like you said, but the Leagues Cup in general, kind of the structure of it and the schedule, like what is this? Like, this is the most American soccer tournament that they could have came up with Mexican, league teams in it. You get points no matter what in PKs, and if you win, you get 2. Like, thanks. I appreciate the 2 points.
I think that's a hockey rule, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very weird, and not to mention the atmosphere was weird, right? So the walkouts sucked. They went one by one team. They went referees, then one team, then the other team. So, on top of the fact that a lot of fans left after the final whistle, like Ryan mentioned, it just they didn't know that we were having PKs because it's a new kind of format. So
and it wasn't really announced even right away.
Yeah, exactly. Everything was kind of just jumbled up. So at the beginning of the podcast, when we were talking about not only did the game it was messy, but even the whole production, the whole kind of setup of the League Cup itself is very messy.
It's all Lionel Messi.
Yeah, with the whole 1 point with the draw and then the 1 point for the PKs, they're not equivalent. It's so much easier to win in a PK than it is in the full time. Sure. I feel like it's just you can't equate them with the same point factor. I feel like it's just, I mean, it might be because there's 3 teams per group, and it just helps because they only play 2 games. So it just helps with kind of the competition a little bit, maybe, right. But still, I don't think I've ever heard of that before. And it doesn't make your team better that you win a PK. So I don't know.
Dude, from that, I think like the players are just equally as confused as the fans, which tells you just how bizarre it is. We're waiting on the announcement of the players, to come in and to cheer them on. And all of a sudden it's like, we're going to do the national anthem. Like, there's no players on the field. There wasn't even players on the field. They did the national anthem. Then, like Sam says, they have, Kansas City comes out, and then you get a break. Then FC comes out, the refs come out, and then they just stand there and they're like, oh, you guys already did the national anthem. Like, what do we do? And they had to like call them over and like take a photo before, and then they call our players out in our lineup, but it wasn't like the typical thing. It was just bizarre. I think it's trying to make it as neutral as possible. It was so weird, man.
Okay. So that's why it was late on the broadcast or on the stream. I was like, okay, what's going on? Like, cause it usually shows some sort of like them getting ready in their pictures and stuff like that. But no, it just like cut straight to the kickoff. And I'm like, wait a second. And then I looked at the time and it was like 5 minutes past the kickoff time. And that makes sense.
You guys ready for the kicker for this? So kind of getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but the upcoming fixture we have on Thursday against Chivas is a home game for us in TQL Stadium, but it's technically a home game for Chivas in our stadium. So everyone is, asking the question, does Chivas get our, home locker room in our own stadium? Are they going to do more, like chants and stuff for Chivas? Even, I don't know. It's bizarre, man. I have no clue. It's just so strange.
They'll probably have more travelers and we will have fans there.
I don't know. Compared to last year, they seem to have a decent amount, but it'll be good to see a lot of their like main starters too. But real quickly, Zach, I guess you could tell us what your card of the week was.
Yeah, it was just from the broadcast, the Bailey audio. Just, I know there's microphones hanging out over there, but the only thing you can hear on the stream is the guy on the megaphone speakerphone chanting, and it's just it doesn't sound good live. Like, I think the entire audio in the stadium might need to be adjusted a little bit. This is a very like yellow card, not very big deal kind of complaint, but it just, I don't like how you can really hear the standout of the megaphone and it just drowns out the rest of the chanting and even part of the commentary on the stream itself. So all in all,
it's a Leagues Cup thing. We're just gonna blame it on that.
Yeah.
not
Just
Apple.
rope it in with the Leagues Cup.
There you go. But yeah, it was a pretty, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was just something I noticed.
Yeah. Ryan, what was your card?
You know, I had a card to be Nick Hagelin, because of just the first 20 minutes of the game just got me so frustrated. I'm going to give the guy a pass. You know, I'm hoping that he bounces back. I'm going to be a little bit easier on him, because we really need him at the end of the year. It doesn't seem like they're going to be bringing anyone else in. So we're going to have to rely on him. I hope he gets it together, and I don't want to dog on him too much because I'm really pulling for our, local guy to pick it up. I really do think that Murphy, maybe they start him in front of him to see what that looks like. But I'm hoping that Hagelin does pick it up. But my, I guess, yellow continuation is the whole Leagues Cup setup. I just can't believe this as a soccer fan, and like seeing all these made up rules and like the way that they're changing the fan atmosphere in like the team's home stadium is just ridiculous. It goes against everything that the MLS has been building. So they really need to look at that and address that for next year and how they move forward with that. So moving right along, I guess I don't want to keep, dogging the Leagues Cup too much here, because we do have a game coming up on Thursday that I'm kind of excited to see us play talent outside of, some MLS teams. Like Zach had mentioned, Chivas Guadalajara is the team we're playing. They're a pretty decent team in the Mexican League. Normally, I know Mexican.
They're first right now in their conference.
They are first. I think they've only played about 3 or 4 games in their season so far.
Yeah, they've played.
I think only 3 and they're undefeated.
Yeah, 3 because they have 3 wins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any standout players from their team that you guys know of or have heard of or anything?
I did a quick glance at FootMob and looks like Fernando Beltran is someone that we need to watch out for. He's I think got 2 goals already, but I think he's their right midfielder. I think they play a 4-3-3 if I'm not mistaken. So it'll be interesting how we do against it might be a high press kind of thing, like a la Red Bull. But I think we're better against pressure than we are against possession.
Sure.
So
what's funny about us playing them again, obviously we played them last season, beat them 3-1 pretty handily, which I'm even shocked how well we played last season against them. It was a really good game to watch. Kubo, Vasquez, and then Calvin Harris had a goal. So those were our 3 goals. But I think this should be a better match this go around. I think it'll be a lot closer considering, what we're talking about now. Like we're on the top of the table. They're on the top of the table right now. 2 teams, I'm not going to say at their peak because their season just started, but very much kind of towards the pinnacle of their leagues. So I definitely think it should be a better game overall.
Zach, any comment on that part of things?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a full reversal, wasn't it? Was there another tournament? I don't even there's so many tournaments that MLS puts on, I feel like, and I can't keep them all straight. But
I think I know where you're going with this. Do you mind if I
I was just gonna say they're starting their season right now, basically. So they only had 3 games in, so they don't have a lot of form and a lot of playing together. And while we're like mid-season or tail end of our season, and we've been playing for X number of months, and our team's probably gelling a lot more than theirs is right now. So it might be interesting to see now that roles have reversed to see how MLS does against the Mexican La Liga teams versus last previously last year. I think it was at the beginning of our season, whereas they were at the tail end of their season.
I think you're also thinking of the CONCACAF Champions League.
That's it.
If you look at LAFC, they're in the beginning of this year. They had won the MLS last year. They're playing the Mexican teams who are in mid-season form, close to the playoff run, where our guys in the MLS have just started the season. I think this is CONCACAF's way of kind of trying to balance out those cups a little bit, where, like you said, the roles are kind of reversed in terms of how many games the teams have had. But still don't like the format. It needs to be changed. I don't know, man. It's just strange.
Yeah, I think this, in my opinion, it doesn't matter much, but I feel like the Leagues Cup could go along the way of the Europa League, where it's kind of like a more of the like fourth, fifth, sixth teams in the league, battle it out, as opposed to the champions, the first top three. I feel like that would be a lot more entertaining in that aspect. But I don't know what the end goal is for Leagues Cup. In other words, I don't know what the future holds. I don't know what their plans are for it. So I'm curious to
know?
I'm curious to see how that goes.
I like that. I like that thought though, and having the Champions League be the Champions League, right? And then Leagues Cup would be kind of the Europa League. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
To where still everybody gets a chance to play for something. You're not just wasting away on, another cup or another term. Like you get to play for something against, Liga MX teams, if you're playing MLS. But I think that's definitely a good shout.
With how bizarre this whole game was, I guess referring back to the, Kansas City game, this upcoming game as well, I'm looking forward to see how we bounce back, with how strange it was. And even with a little bit of a rotation, I think we'll come back. We'll be strong. We're always good at home, even though this is technically not a home game, whatever. Our overall record this year is 19-2-6. So this could be a 20th win of the year, which would just be such a huge thing. I mean, in our first few years, we had like 3 wins this season. So for 20 wins in a full season would just be awesome.
So let's get some score predictions. Zach, what do we think we're getting here on Thursday?
This is going to be either a blowout, as in we get crushed, or it's going to be probably a draw with PKs, and then we pull it out. So I'm going to go with I'm not going to go against those score lines, so I'm going to go 2-1 us.
Ryan?
Yeah, I honestly had the same scoreline as you, Zach. I thought 2-1 as well. I think that Bupenza gets on the board on this one, though. I'm looking forward to that. I wonder if they continue to try Kubo at right back, which will be interesting. But Sam, what about you?
I swear we did not all share notes, but I had 2-1 down as well.
Let's go. I love that. So stay tuned, I guess, to see what happens. But real quickly, I'm going to give you guys our trivia answer here for our question. So a question again, Lucho Acosta scored a PK in how many straight games now for FC Cincinnati? Sam had locked in 6 games in a row, I think, right?
This is terrible.
And Zach had locked in 3, I believe, correct?
Yes.
All right, Zach, you're a little bit closer. It's now the 4th straight game that Lucho has scored a PK in, dating back to, I think, Charlotte. He had one against New York Red Bulls. He had one against Nashville. I'm not counting the All-Star game because it's not for FC. And then the last one here being the Leagues Cup game against KC. And even if you want to say he scored 2 PKs in that game. So pretty cool to see him have that. So pretty interesting. I was really trying to do a deep dive and see what the MLS record is for consecutive games with the PK. That stat doesn't exist anywhere. So maybe we could, tweet out somebody and see if they could provide us some of that info. He's on a kind of hot streak. You can't, I guess, fault the guy for like making his PKs. You can like say whatever you want about him padding his stats on PKs, but he makes them. So I'm not going to be mad about that.
That's 5 straight, right? That he's made
5 straight, technically, even probably more than that. I think he missed one earlier in the season.
Yeah, but that was early. I think
but it
that
was very
early.
early on in the season. So
Wow.
Nice.
yep. Any last thoughts for you guys before we close it out here?
No, I'm just excited to get kind of 2 games in 1 week, if you will. I know it's a weird game on a Sunday and then a game on a Thursday. This is definitely a weird schedule to have in the middle of the season, but I'm excited that we get FC twice this week.
You know, I both love Leagues Cup and hate it. I hate it because of the format, but love it because soccer almost every day of the week. Like,
True.
I don't think there's a single day this week there's not a game. So I'm a happy man, and Premier League starts here soon. So there's going to be even more soccer. So
Nice.
I'm excited.
I had 2 final thoughts. Number one, prayers for Santiago Arias getting his visa. He's currently back in Colombia trying to get that. So prayers that it's not going to take as long as it took Yerson Mosquera earlier in the year. Number one. Number two, I'm wearing my shirt today, the American Outlaws. Good luck to the U.S. women's national team who plays tomorrow night against the Netherlands. So far, they're 1-0 in the World Cup. I hope that they continue to win and actually get a three-peat. That would be pretty cool to see. Rooting on Rose Lavelle, one of our hometown girls. And then we actually have a backup keeper who is from Cincinnati as well. So some local connections there.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys. Well, next week we'll probably be touching a little bit on this Leagues Cup game on Thursday, probably a little bit on what the future holds. Not sure, again, depending on what we do on Thursday, we'll decide if we move forward in the tournament or not. If not, we'll probably touch a little bit on the U.S. women's games, or I guess this past week, and a little bit of that too. So we'll have content for you. Don't worry. So we'll see you next week.